There it hangs, suspended in gloom, glowing dimly in darkness. A beacon there to inform us that there is always a way out. But don't go just yet. We have such wonderful things to show you. This is the Exit Light Podcast.
Good evening, and welcome to the Exit Light Podcast. I am your storyteller, Eli Beals. Recently, I had the pleasure and honor of being a contributing author for Horrific Tales Volume 2, Cryptids. Colin Martin has been a dedicated supporter of emerging talent for years now, creating opportunities for new and aspiring writers across the globe. Head over to the Horrific Podcast on YouTube and help the audience grow and celebrate the wonderful genre in all of its facets. Additionally, you can support my individual efforts by going to my website, exitlightpodcast.com, and follow the links to my various outlets, such as t-shirts and my printed works. At the very least, do the thing every content producer asks. You know what I'm talking about. Alright then, let's get the show going, shall we? Some people have it all, don't they? The world is their playground, and nothing is out of their price range. Yet, some things are simply not for sale. Or are they? I suppose it depends on the fine print and tactics employed. Because who knows what such a person is really after?
I work at a cafe in an upscale area. The sort of people I see on a daily basis live lives that make your lottery-winning dreams pale in comparison. These people live in another world and expect the best of everything. Hence, our little cafe. You can't just walk in here and order a caramel double barrel blast or whatever. If you were even to try, Charles and Angus will kindly escort you to the nearest Starbucks. It is exclusive, and that's what these people pay upwards of $900 a month for. Sounds crazy, I know, but this isn't about my job or its absurdity. This is about something that happened recently. I guess I'm still trying to process it all, so maybe writing it all down might help. I had been with Shasta for a few months, and things were starting to feel comfortable, setting into that routine that leads to domestic bliss or whatever. We loved each other. We met as people do in that perfect way that seems completely out of nowhere. If I had a type, it would be Shasta. And she thought the same thing about me. Gross, I know. I realize how uncomfortable people can get when someone is just brain dead from puppy love. Let's just say that we really, really liked each other. And perhaps we were just as confused by the whole thing ourselves. Maybe inclined too hastily to check all those life moment milestones that dot the typical life path. People know when you're in love, and sometimes they mention it in polite conversation, and of course you just have to tell them all about it. Mike was some high-level tech guy, one of the progenitors of what we consider the information age. He knew Jobs and the Woz, Gates, and countless others. Conversations with the clientele aren't usually like this. Mostly I am treated like part of the scenery, an efficient and highly skilled piece of equipment. but some, like Mike, are chatty and treat me like a human. He was that kind of friendly that bordered on manic, just intensely interested in everything about me. Sometimes I would get the feeling that this was some kind of manipulation tactic. When he heard of my plans to abscond with Shasta to a more rustic setting, that intensity I was talking about ramped up even more to the point where he seemed electrified. He said he owns a cabin in the Sierras. It's not super fancy like his lodge in Switzerland, but would be perfect for a little getaway. Seeing my look of uncertainty, he laughed, saying cheerfully that it wasn't a proposition, and that he wouldn't be joining us. I laughed then as well, more out of relief because you never know with some people. He listed all the amenities and even pulled up some photos of the place. It looked amazing. To me, this was not a cabin. Usually when I think about cabins, I don't think about hot tubs and satellite television. This was just a big house built to look rustic. But there was nothing around it for miles, he said. He gave me his card and said to let him know when I wanted to go there, so he could arrange accommodations. I hadn't taken a real vacation since I was a kid, and so this had me totally thrilled. When I told Shasta about it, she at first seemed dubious, her thoughts going to the exact same place mine did initially. Eventually, I convinced her that this could be fun. And if we saw anything weird, like cameras where they shouldn't be, and the like, we would just leave. Simple as that. I called Mike the next day to tell him that we both had some time off the following month, and that we'd love to stay in his cabin. He said that would be perfect, and promptly sent me the details, the address, and the access code to get in and such. The weeks that followed were just as it had been, except every time I would see Mike, he would suggest things to do in the area. Again, this level of enthusiasm and personal stake in my little world raised some deep, primal alarms in me. I rationalized it as the eccentricity of the insanely wealthy and perpetually bored. And also, that though this gesture meant a hell of a lot to me, it meant very little to Mike. I had to remind myself that a trivial thing such as cost simply did not factor in with him. We took my car because it had four-wheel drive in case it snowed, which I was really hoping it would, as I had not seen the snow in years. Sure enough, as we climbed in elevation, we could see powder-dusted ranges glinting brightly in the crisp mountain air. The photos did nothing to impress upon me the reality of this place. It was indeed rustic in the most opulent way possible. Refinements of rudimentary roughness into veritable works of art adorned every aspect of this place. Upon the doorstep was a welcome basket with several bottles of wine and assorted food items like cured meats and cheeses. We found the fridge fully stocked with fresh produce and even more alcohol. Shasta's apprehension evaporated as she flitted around the cabin, eventually settling on a bearskin rug in front of the cavernous fireplace. The fireplace was gas, but the bearskin was genuine grizzly. I think we forgot to check for hidden cameras in our initial delight of such lavish accommodations. If there had been, they would have recorded quite a show. Our first night there was bliss, indulging ourselves to the point of exhaustion. Before falling asleep in each other's arms, she whispered that she had died and gone to heaven. Our first nature hike together started as wonderful. A wide, well-maintained trail followed the procession of a gentle river. Eventually we stopped at a clearing in the shade of a covered bridge spanning the river. We took dozens of pictures of the setting. We were not the kind of people that felt the need to catalog every minute of every day, but this was just something we both agreed we wanted reminders of for later. We talked about our plans to build our cabin, maybe not so decadent as Mike's, but something just as nice by our standards. As she was describing the color scheme and decor, her eyes widened. I turned around to see what had caught her attention and saw movement across the river. It was just a low branch waving until it was still. I began to ask her what she saw, and she shushed me, still scanning the far bank of foliage. She said she thought she saw someone, but it could have just been an animal, maybe an owl. The forest seemed to press in on us then. In that moment, we knew that we were not alone, and hiding in the dense firs were silent, watchful eyes. We should have left then. We should have gotten the hell out of there. The subject did come up initially, but upon returning to the cabin and a few glasses of Cabernet, we laughed it off, chiding ourselves for being stupid city slickers. We fell asleep on the couch in the middle of a movie we hardly watched. It served as a comfortable clatter to lull us, and maybe something else aided in our extra relaxed state. Something that was in the wine, perhaps. A crash sounded from the entrance, jolting us awake. The panel window flanking the front door was a spiderweb of cracks surrounding a jagged breach in the glass. Before fleeing into the bedroom, I caught a glance of a figure standing there, holding an axe. We had left our phones in the den, and of course the landline in the bedroom was cut. It was so surreal. It was like I was watching myself in a scene from a slasher movie, doing all of the things panic-driven prey would do, such as barricade themselves in a safe space, subsequently becoming trapped and thinking of all the would have, should have, could haves. Above my thundering heartbeat and Shasta's rapid breathing, I could hear silence. A creeping menace. Were they in the cabin? What did they want from us? We waited for what seemed like hours before I decided that it was just someone trying to spook us. I wanted to ease her fear by joking that it was definitely not an owl before checking things out. But before I could do that, the lights went out. Shasta screamed. I felt something hit me at the base of my skull, and then nothing. When I came to, from what I can only describe as the worst hangover in my life, it was late morning. I was thirsty. So thirsty, and my neck was coated in tacky, drying blood. Somehow I just knew Shasta was gone, but I looked for her anyway. My car was still parked in the driveway, and aside from the general disheveled look of the place and the broken window, it all looked natural. I grabbed a few things that I would need and left. My last hope was to maybe find Shasta along the road. Maybe she got away. I drove slowly with the windows down, honking constantly and yelling her name until my voice gave out, and the terror of the night's events came crashing down, and I just cried into the steering wheel. The days that followed seemed like hopeless acts of routine. Routine for the police, routine for the counselors and my employer. Routine stages of grief and dread that the next call would be the one where they say they found her body in a ditch somewhere. All that seemed left for me to do was to try and carry on as usual. I went back to work and found some comfort in that, absorbed back into the familiar. With less time to dwell on the absence of Shasta, I managed to at least accept the possibility that I would never see her again. Until today. I hadn't seen Mike since the trip to his cabin, and upon his arrival today I felt immediately inclined to apologize for the mess I left there. He just waved his hand magnanimously as if to say, "Don't worry about it." He would have been by sooner, but he was away on business in Asia, and the damage to his property was really no trouble at all things considered. He offered his sympathy and asked if there was any news about Shasta's whereabouts. I told him no, that the case had gone cold and all I and her family could do was wait. He nodded as if this was not a surprise, and then told me cheerfully that at least now I can continue to provide him with the best cappuccinos he's ever had. Then he dropped a bracelet on the countertop, which might as well have been an atomic bomb. A bracelet exactly like the one I had bought for Shasta on her birthday. He said it was left at his cabin and thought I'd like to have it. Something to remember her by. I thanked him in a daze, and it didn't occur to me until much later that I knew with absolute certainty that Shasta had been wearing it that night. And, in fact, she never took it off, not even to shower. That Mike is a kidnapper or murderer, I'm quite certain of now. I just don't know what I can do about it.
As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, which means that value is highly subjective. What Mike treasured was the service and quality of our poor barista. I'm sure you can put the rest of it together. Until next time, dear listeners, good night.